The rain had already soaked through my jacket by the time I noticed her standing outside the grocery store. She wasn't asking anyone for money. She wasn't holding a sign. She simply stood there with 3 children gathered around her like tiny birds hiding beneath the last branch in a storm. The oldest girl held the youngest boy tightly while another little girl tried to smile despite the cold. The woman kept her eyes lowered, as though meeting someone's gaze might invite another rejection. When our eyes finally met, she whispered words so quiet they almost disappeared beneath the sound of the rain. "No one wants us." I don't know why those 4 words hit me harder than anything I had ever heard. Maybe it was because they weren't filled with anger. They weren't spoken with bitterness. They sounded like someone who had simply accepted that the world had decided her family no longer mattered. Without thinking, I smiled gently and answered, "I want all 4 of you." She looked up with tears already filling her eyes, certain she had misunderstood me. "My name is Ethan Carter, and I have spent most of my life believing that kindness costs nothing but can change everything. 3 years earlier, I had buried both of my parents within 6 months of each other. I never married, not because I didn't want a family, but because life had a strange habit of changing my plans before I could build them. I threw myself into work, running a small construction company outside Nashville, Tennessee. The business did well, but every evening I returned to a quiet house that echoed with silence. People often assumed success erased loneliness. It doesn't. That rainy Thursday was supposed to be another ordinary day. Instead, it became the day my life truly began. The woman introduced herself as Grace. Her children were Emma, who was 10, Lily, who had just turned 7, and little Noah, only 4 years old. They hadn't eaten since breakfast. Not because Grace refused to work. Because life had refused to give her another chance. Her husband had died in a highway accident nearly 2 years earlier. Hospital bills swallowed every dollar they owned. Their apartment was sold after months of unpaid rent. Every job interview ended the same way. "We're looking for someone without childcare responsibilities." Friends slowly disappeared. Relatives stopped answering their calls. Shelters were always full. One landlord even looked at her children before saying, "Families with 3 kids usually bring trouble." Grace stopped explaining herself after that. She simply kept walking. I bought dinner for all of them at the small diner across the street. The children thanked the waitress for every refill of water. Emma quietly wrapped half her sandwich in a napkin. I asked why. "So Noah can have breakfast tomorrow." That nearly broke me. Children should never have to think like that. After dinner I offered them a ride to a nearby motel. Grace hesitated. "I don't want charity." "It isn't charity," I replied. "It's simply one human helping another." She finally accepted. I paid for a week's stay without telling her until after the clerk handed over the room key. She cried silently. Not loud sobs. Just quiet tears from someone who had forgotten what hope felt like. Over the next week I checked on them every evening. The kids slowly began smiling. Emma loved reading mystery novels. Lily could turn any empty cardboard box into a castle. Noah insisted every construction truck I owned was the biggest in America. Grace never stopped searching for work. Eventually I learned something remarkable. Before her husband's death, she had been an elementary school teacher. One of the best. Former students still wrote thank you letters to her. Life hadn't taken away her talent. It had only buried it beneath heartbreak. I introduced her to an old friend who managed a private learning center. She earned an interview. Then another. Within days she had a job. It wasn't glamorous. But it was honest. She left smiling for the first time since I'd met her. The children noticed immediately. "Mom smiled today," Lily whispered. As though witnessing a miracle. Months passed. Grace rented a tiny apartment. I often helped fix broken pipes, repaint walls, or assemble furniture. Not because she asked. Because that's what family does. Only none of us had admitted we were becoming one. One Saturday Emma invited me to her school science fair. I almost didn't go because of work. Thankfully I changed my mind. She had built a project about bridges. When the judges asked why she chose that topic, she answered confidently. Because bridges help people reach places they couldn't reach alone. Then she pointed toward me. He's my bridge. Every adult in the room fell silent. I had to step outside before anyone noticed the tears in my eyes. From that day forward, I realized something. I wasn't simply helping them anymore. I couldn't imagine life without them. Still, fear held me back. What if Grace thought I pitied her? What if the children became attached only to lose another person? I said nothing. Until Christmas Eve. The community center where my company sponsored holiday dinners was packed with families. Grace volunteered to serve meals. The kids wore matching sweaters donated by a local church. They looked happier than I'd ever seen them. Near the end of the evening Noah climbed onto my lap. Are you coming tomorrow? For Christmas? He nodded. I hope so. He looked down. I asked Santa for a dad. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Grace overheard every word. She gently carried Noah away before he could embarrass himself. Later, after everyone left, we stood outside watching snow fall beneath the streetlights. I'm sorry, she whispered. You shouldn't have heard that. I needed to. She stared at the ground. I've tried so hard to give them everything. You already have. No, she said softly. They deserve a real family. They already do. She shook her head. No one wants us. Those same heartbreaking words. The same ones she'd spoken months earlier outside the grocery store. This time I didn't hesitate. I stepped closer. Lifted her chin gently. Looked into eyes that had forgotten how beautiful hope could be. I want all four of you. She froze. I continued before fear could silence me. I don't want to rescue you. I don't feel sorry for you. I love your kindness. I love your strength. I love Emma's courage, Lily's imagination, Noah's laughter. And I love you. Her tears fell before she spoke. You'd choose all this? I wouldn't choose anything else. Emma and Lily had quietly stepped onto the porch looking for their mother. They heard everything. Emma hugged me first. Lily joined seconds later. Little Noah wrapped both tiny arms around my leg. Does this mean Santa came early? Everyone laughed through tears. The following year was filled with ordinary moments that somehow became extraordinary. Family breakfasts. Homework around the kitchen table. Camping trips. Movie nights. Arguments about whose turn it was to wash dishes. Laughter echoing through hallways that had once known only silence. One spring afternoon I officially adopted all three children after marrying Grace. The courthouse clerk wiped away tears before handing us the final paperwork. Noah shouted loudly enough for the entire building to hear. We all have the same last name now. People applauded. Complete strangers. Because kindness has a beautiful way of bringing strangers together. Years later Emma graduated from college with honors in civil engineering. She designed bridges. Real ones. During her graduation speech she smiled toward me. Every bridge begins because someone believes two distant places deserve to be connected. I learned that from my dad. Lily became an art teacher. Noah studied pediatric medicine because he wanted frightened children to feel safe. Grace returned to teaching full-time, inspiring another generation of students. As for me, I never became the richest man in Tennessee. But every evening I came home to a noisy dinner table where someone always needed advice, someone always laughed too loudly, and someone always stole the last dinner roll. That house was no longer silent. It was alive. People often ask when I decided to become a father. They expect some complicated answer. The truth is beautifully simple. It happened the moment one exhausted mother whispered, "No one wants us." And I answered with the only words my heart could possibly say. I want all four of you. Because sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't giving someone money, food, or shelter. Sometimes it's giving them something they've almost stopped believing exists. A place to belong. A family that chooses them every single day. And that choice has the power to change not just 4 lives, but every life those 4 hearts will one day touch.